Yeah, so I'm going to say something about exploring the senses. So there's a poem I've often quoted on hill walking retreats, so I'm just going to quote it, part of it here. And it was a poem written about 100 years ago by an English poet and tramp called William Davis, which is a very well-known poem called Leisure. And just a few lines from this poem. What is this life if full of care? We have no time to stop and stare, no time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as tree and cow, as sheep and cows, no time to see in broad daylight streams full of stars like skies at night. A poor life this, if full of care, we have no time to stand and stare. So if we want to appreciate and connect with nature, we have to spend time doing it. We have to take time to stand and stare. Now, because of the pace that we live our lives at, or we're caught up, preoccupied with what's going on in our lives, or we just simply get lost in thought, we often barely notice nature. I remember on our Hurley hill walking retreats at Dhanakosa, there used to be quite an emphasis on getting to the top of Munros every day. Munros are mountains over 3,000 feet in Scotland. So it was quite goal orientated. And I found that often the only time people stopped to look at the view was when they were out of breath and they had no choice really because there was a puff. So we started to feel that maybe we should try and encourage a bit more mindfulness when people were out hill walking. So we started to suggest that people slow down when they were out and basically started to take the time to not only stand and stare, but start to engage their senses with the landscape. So we started doing shorter walks, not quite so difficult walks. So taking time to stand and stare became more of what the walk was about. And we found that people just naturally, through doing this, came into a deeper connection with the mountains and with the landscape. So yes, of course, the predominant sense, the one we use to stand and stare, is the visual sense. And when we take the time to stand and stare, often the first thing we take in is what you could call the big view, the expansive view. And at Dhanakosa, we've got loads of these. You know, you go up the hills and have them, but you just walk out the door at Dhanakosa and you've got the big view. So my favorite big view, if you can have a favorite big view, is looking down the loch or going down to the loch at Dhanakosa, standing on the shore, looking down the loch to Ben Vorlich, that classic mountain peak at the end of the loch, which has graced many of our programme covers at Dhanakosa. But it's a real stunner of a view. I just never tire of it. Well, I've been here 25 years and I still love it. Yeah, what a view it is. And last week we got back to leading retreats here, and I was doing leading the meditation on the Qigong retreat. And every morning, the first thing we did after we got up was go down to the loch and do half an hour of Qigong, whatever the weather. Yeah, and it was just brilliant, you know, seeing that view every morning while doing the Qigong. Sometimes, well, one morning it hailed, yeah. One morning we had heavy rain. One morning we had some of this really soft rain and these lovely little ripples in the loch. Some mornings the loch was mirror still, and sometimes wavy, sometimes fantastic clouds. Yeah, every day the mood was different. So that's the big view, yeah. But you tend to find when people come on retreat that as they meditate more, they tend to get more into what you could call the small views, the macro worlds. Yeah? And it's the intimate details of the landscape, like a spider's web glistening with morning dew. Oh, one thing that fascinates me is the little worlds that live on the top of fence posts. Yeah. Every time you walk past a fence post, have a look at the top. Certainly at Dhanakosa, the old fence posts have magical little worlds like a little planet. So you've got a little garden of different mosses and grasses. You've got miniature trees there, and you've got little insects, so the inhabitants of this little world. They're actually fascinating things, and you get totally absorbed in looking at, these little worlds. And one of the things I find about looking at the detail is the more you look, the more you see. Yeah? And there's always something else to see. Yeah? If you think you've seen everything, look again and you'll see something new. But the visual sense isn't the only sense that we can engage, obviously. For me, the sense of hearing can add real emotional resonance to my experience of nature. And as we were talking about in this morning session, for those of you who are here, at the moment, the bird song here is epic. Yeah. This morning's meditation, people were commenting on how beautiful the bird song was. And it's fantastic at this time of year. All the resident birds have been joined by the summer migrants, and they're all singing like Billy-O. It's just fantastic. I've been dipping into a book called Meadowland, The Private Life of an English Field. So it's a book about a farmer's, well, it's 3 fields actually, the farmer's 3 fields, and it's an intimate portrait of these 3 fields and his love of his land, basically. And this is a little excerpt from his diary in May, and he says, "To stand alone in a field in England and listen to the morning chorus of the birds is to remember why life is precious." Yeah. So actually I changed it to stand alone in a field in Britain and listen to the morning chorus of the birds is to remember why life is precious. But put in the country of your choice. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the sighing of the wind in the trees, the calming yet energizing sound of flowing water, all enhance our experience of nature. If only we take the time, not only to stand and stare, but to stand and listen, or sit and listen. So the next sense I'm going to talk about is the sense of touch. There's great things to touch around here at Dhanakosa. Yeah, we've got in the wood at the back, we've got these incredible clumps of moss. Yeah, which is so delightful to feel. It's quite sensuous. These clumps of moss are so soft and pillowy. Yeah. Then there's tree bark. Yeah, the feels of the different trees and the bark. Yeah. There's the feel of water. Yeah, which Nika and Mokshadi and Abby, I think they all go in quite regularly in for a loch. I'm a bit more of a scaredy cat when it comes to jumping time of year, but I put my hands in. Yeah, that does for me. The feel of the water. I'm picking up a stone in the Loch Shore and feeling that cool surface. So I live in Callander, just down the road from here, and about 5 miles from where I stay. Well, it's actually closer. Actually, it's just a couple of miles from where I stay. The Woodland Trust have taken over an area of woodland there. So quite often I go walking on their trails through this woodland. And a couple of years ago, they introduced a new feature to one of the trails. And I think this was for visiting school parties. And they'd introduced feelie boxes, yeah, which were little boxes which you couldn't open, but you could put your hand in, yeah, and you had to guess what was in the box. through putting your hand in. And I loved it. I just went around all the boxes like a big kid, you know, feeling into it. And it was such a delightful feeling, really. And it's like a dormant faculty in me came alive, because I could no longer rely on sight to identify. So I had to activate my feeling sense. And yeah, what a wonderful experience that was. So I can recommend just closing your eyes in a bit of woodland and then just feeling what's there. Yeah. So the sense of smell. Usually the sense of smell is quite far down the pecking order when we talk about sense appreciation in the landscape. But apparently it's a fallacy that we human beings have a poor sense of smell. Apparently we have a very good sense of smell and a very discriminatory sense of smell. Yeah. The French word for smell is sentir, which also means to feel. And I think emotion and smell are quite intimately connected. This time of year, one of my walks takes me through a small forest of gorse bushes. And in the midst of them, some enlightened person has put a bench. Yeah. So I just love on my walk sitting in this bench. And at this time of year, the gorse flowers are giving off this coconut-like fragrance. And I just sit there and it just lifts me up. Yeah, this beautiful sense of coconut. Yeah, takes me just naturally into a meditative state of being with this lovely coconut-like fragrance wafting up from the gorse. And if you think about it, for many of us, and for me anyway, the fragrance of incense is very much part of my emotional connection with meditation. I've got this really strong memory of the first incense that I used for meditating in my little student flat, Spiritual Sky, the Hare Krishna incense you used to get. I don't know. Yeah. Patchouli, that was the one. I was a bit of a hippie. That's the one I got at the time. Yeah, so next time you're out for a walk, sniff the air. Yeah, bring alive the sense of smell. So I went out for a little walk earlier on, and this is a Dhanakosa singing bowl. Let's lift it up a bit more. And this is some leaf litter, yeah, which I collected. Oh, that's what Chris Packham would call a trouser rubbing moment. Just look up Chris Packham on YouTube if you don't know what that is. Chris Packham and trouser rubbing moment, and you'll find it. Oh, yeah. And you wouldn't think it, would you? It's just lying on the ground. It's covering my computer now. It's probably on the end of my nose. But yeah, you wouldn't know that, you know, but it smells great, you know. So in the countryside at Dhanakosa, that's great, you know, you can do that. If you're in a city park, I'd advise a bit more caution. That sort of thing, yeah. So I'd inspect the leaf litter first, because you might find something you don't want to smell in there. Yeah. But yeah, sense of smell, bring it on, bring it alive. So, where does that leave us? A sense of taste. So, sense of taste, well, you've got to be careful here, haven't you? Because there's certainly stuff out there that is not good for you to eat and drink. I mean, some stuff is poisonous or might make you a wee bit ill or just not taste great. So you have to know what you're doing with tasting in the landscape. But there are things you can, oh, good. I've got the link. Well done, Charadasa. So yeah, on August hill walking retreats, one of the things I love doing is sharing bilberries in the hills. So bilberries are like little blueberries you get growing in the hills, and they're really tasty. So introducing people to them, that's fantastic. And at this time of year, I don't think they're quite out yet, but the fresh beech leaves, yeah, are really tasty. They've got this lovely citrusy taste, and you can put them in salad, or you could choose with with birch leaves. Sorry, did I say beech leaves there? Beech leaves in the salad, fresh ones, not old ones, and birch leaves for a bit of tea. So yeah, if you know what you're doing, you can bring in taste. So that's a journey through the senses. So in the coming week, we'd encourage you just to engage your senses, yeah, with the landscape, and not just rely on the visual sense, which is our predominant sense. But if it's safe to do so, then close your eyes and explore with the other senses. It helps bring them to life when you close your eyes. And one thing you can taste around here is a glass of Dhanakosa water. So this comes from the hill behind here at Dhanakosa, yeah? And there's no chlorine in it. It has gone through a UV sterilizer, so any little bacteria there have been sterilized out with a UV light. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, we should sell this in the shop, really. Fantastic. So yeah, I raise a glass to exploring our sense connections. Yeah, connecting more deeply with the landscape through engaging our senses. It just helps us connect. Yeah, and that's really what we're about in these Alive in the Nature sessions. So to finish off with, I could add a wee bit to William Davis's poem. What is this life if full of care? We have no time to stop and stare, listen, touch and smell and taste if you know what you're doing. Doesn't quite have the poetic ring of the original, does it, Mokshudi?
In brackets.